In February of 2008, good people came together to Belize to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the Blue Creek Mennonites. The Blue Creek Jubilee Festival. And what a good time it was! 2,000 people came from as far away as South America, Canada, Mexico, and the United States, all with one thing in common: their love for the Mennonite way of life. The Blue Creek Mennonites had been there in northern Belize for 50 years now, and there was cause to celebrate. They had transformed 115,000 acres of jungle into beautiful farmland and pastures. The Mennonites of Blue Creek would share their stories, the struggles and the strife, the good times and the bad, and there would be food and fun, and they would give the glory all to God. If you were there on that day, you'll love reliving the good times. And if you weren't there, well, you can see what you've missed. There was lots of food, 250 pounds of barbecued steak, 95 pounds of pork chops, and chicken too. Food and fellowship, anything that the heart and the stomach could desire. We enjoyed it. Let's take a stroll around the festival grounds and see what we can see. The people of Blue Creek have a love for their livestock. Fine horses, calves, cows, and bulls, all being placed in temporary pens for the upcoming events. We see state-of-the-art agricultural equipment and trucks loaded with huge logs, all part of the Blue Creek way of life. Now here's something new. We can only imagine what will happen here. I can't wait. These little houses represent the first settlement by the Rio Hondo River in 1958. Today they hold crafts and woodwork and antiques. You may recognize some of these things or maybe not. Once used in daily life, they have now become treasures of the people. There were lots of things to look at and discuss. Ever wonder how bread was baked in Blue Creek 50 years ago? Well, this is how it was done. Partially buried in the ground to hold in the heat, bread cooked this way is still delicious. We had some with homemade papaya jam. Wagon rides were available to anyone as well, giving the riders the experience of bouncing in the wagon with the trot of the horse. Kinda like the old days. The kids were enjoying the horseback rides too. Most Blue Creek kids know how to ride horses. But the excitement was building because Blue Creek's first parade was about to begin. People were finding a good spot to watch the pride and joy of Blue Creek pass by. They will be seeing the colony's most efficient machines, which over the years have been the key to survival in conquering the jungle. And here they come. Horses have always been a part of this colony, to work with the cattle or for simple enjoyment. Behind the Jubilee flag is the Belize flag, flown with pride. These men following represent the field work, hard work. They carry machetes, water jugs, axes, and a 60-year-old chainsaw. The boys in 1958 knew firsthand what hard work was all about, and their family members walked beside them in appreciation. Horses were for transportation and for work, brought in from Shipyard, the old colony's sister colony. Different kinds of tractors were brought to Blue Creek early on, like this gray 25 gas, or this 35 Massey Ferguson. The sitting area was rebuilt to show you how tractors were customized to fit the needs of the people in 1958. Usually seating 17 people, PTO-driven trailers like this one were necessary in traveling bad roads and jungle work. In fact, this trailer is returning to work after the parade. This load of sawdust on a trailer is here to represent the early years of transporting dirt in the road-making business. The New Holland feed mixers like this one came in the 1970s, a gigantic step ahead in preparing feed. No more shoveling or tying bags. Taking care of an older vehicle is something not easily done in this area, but here are some nicer ones. A skidder is the ultimate strength for logging or construction. And speaking of logging, here's a load of mahogany trees representing the logging done over the years. These trees are very valuable. This D4 Caterpillar is Blue Creek's oldest machine. So is this D8. Bulldozers like these were a better way to bring down the jungle, much better than the axe. This gooseneck cattle trailer is a must-have for any rancher transporting his herd. Threshers, now there's a machine that's hard to put down. This is a tool that the pioneers had used in Mexico, making it a familiar and important tool for farming here, going from one farm to the next until all the crops were harvested. That's how it was done for many years. Today, combines are being used, but so is this dedicated thresher. For the longest time, dump trailers like this 5-ton have been the farmer's best tool for grain transportation. Again, if you didn't own one, you had a neighbor who did, and that was sufficient. The equipment that was brought here in the late 1960s was a combination of brands of small farming machines, but today John Deere is a colony favorite, roaming the fields with their big attachments, making it possible to work large tracts of land in a short amount of time. On this machine are special tracks, mainly used for leveling low land, such as rice fields, making land more useful in the agriculture business. As rice is a large part of their agriculture, these mud track machines are perhaps today as special to some as the old-fashioned bean thresher is to others. It's a must. As the first settlers are watching this changing stage of farming equipment pass by, I am sure that they have many thoughts on how their family has labored and worried together over the years. And when looking back, perhaps to them the machete years may not seem so bad after all. This display of machines represents great accomplishments, but pride of success is shown all over by the owners of these tools or the drivers who are dedicated hired men or even little workers.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to extend a hearty welcome, and it's an honor for me to be here and try to be the MC this morning. We have dignitaries, special invited guests. At this point in time, I would ask that maybe you could come up.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Honorable Presidium. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great privilege to celebrate with you today. And I would like to congratulate you as residents of Blue Creek in general, but in a special way, thank the planning and organizing committees to achieve all these preparations. You have done a great job to make and serve and to help this big crowd of people a celebrating crowd. And may God bless you and us all today. These people, they were called Anabaptized because they were baptized again. They left Switzerland, southern Germany. They went up to northern Germany and finally Holland. In Holland there was a priest who had a very superficial life, and he had a brother who died in the peasant war. We cannot go into that whole thing, but this man, this priest, was very surprised that his brother had been willing to die for something. He said, I am not willing to die for anything. He spent his days and his nights playing cards and drinking wine until late, and during the day it's being said that he looked at pretty girls and regretted that he had to practice celibacy, that he never had been able to get married. His name was Mennonites. Yet when his brother died for his cause, for his conviction, he said, I need that conviction. And when he heard about the Anabaptist movement, he joined them and he became their leader, to the point that some people started calling these people Mennonites because they were following Menno. They were called Mennonites. In Holland they were called Mennonites. Later in Prussia they got the name Mennonites. They themselves called themselves just the Christian brethren in Christ. In Holland they got a little more, they were more tolerated. They could live out in the country, not living in the cities. And they became farmers. They were asked to be farmers. And they made ocean land to farmland. They built dikes. Yesterday when I saw your little dam here producing electricity, I said to Mr. Dick, you have your right name. The name Dick comes from Holland for those people that built dikes, and the name Dyke became Dick, and David Dick has the same gene as those guys in Holland. He built a dam to make this country useful and to produce electricity. Dick, he did the same thing as the people in Holland, that they built dams and produced more farmland. And yet there was not enough. They moved to Prussia. And Prussia, they had lots of difficult times. There was sumpland so bad, as I was told here in Blue Creek, where you could put the stick 6-8 feet deep and it was still going down. And there again, the gene of one of our Anabaptist followers. He knew those canals. He dried up the land and made that a farmland. There are really nice rice fields today. The Mennonites did the same thing in the 16th and 17th century in Prussia. You still can see those canals that they built to take the water to the ocean and to drain it so that they could use the land to farm it. That's why the Prussian government had long patience with them before they really attacked them. But when Frederick the Great, when he passed away and his son came to the throne, he was very strict with the Mennonites, and he said, I will not only not allow to buy more land for them, we will take some land away on them. That meant a big, huge problem for our farm Mennonites in Prussia. And they left. They were looking for something else. And God somehow opened them a door to Russia with Catherine the Great. And the first colony was established in 1789. And Russia, where the Mennonites stayed for a long time, for almost 100 years, telling them 3 important things that Mennonites have always asked for: that they don't have to give an oath, that they don't have to take arms in case of war, and that they will be able to have their own schools. And they asked for the same thing in every of these countries. Russia promised that. In 1870, Tsar Nicholas II said, by 1880, I will suspend that privilegium that you have, and you will start doing military service, and you will teach Russian in your schools. The conservative Mennonites, they felt uneasy, and they said, we have to go further. And they were looking for more land. But in the meantime, in Russia, they did different things to do that the people of the Mennonites, they became an ethnic group. If we look into different places, they always take different names with them. Even from Prussia, we have the Sawatskis, the Talitskis, and the Lepkis. We have them from Prussia, but we have no Gorbachevs, Brezhnevs, or other names from Russia. We separated ourselves from the Russian people. We became an ethnic group. A strong leader, Johann Cornish, he did a lot for the economical development of the Mennonites. He helped them to get strong economically, educationally, agriculturally, in orchards. He did a lot of things, but he was a very strong, strict man. I see here in Blue Creek, you have people here with vision, people that use the problems as an opportunity, that do like John F. Kennedy said when he was president. A lot of people, they say, why? And I say, why not? And let's face it. And you have people here that you have it too. I must say again, I see that like Brother David Dick. He has visions. He is a guy that has these visions like Johann Cornish. But I said, before I want to say this, I went and asked him if he was also a very strict man like Cornish, because he used the whip and the pitch. And he says, no, I hold on brot. So that is good, and I'm glad to hear that. So as long as we do that within the Anabaptist and the Mennonite brotherly love, great for him. Why not ask why, but why not, and face the problem. That happened in Russia. But 1874, those Mennonites that did not trust that the Mennonites would be able to do alternative service, they left for Canada. That's really our history. We are those Canadian Mennonites that we are always called the Canadier. The Canadian Mennonites that left in 1874 from Russia and came to Canada. Those that stayed, they tried different things. But those that went to Russia in 1874, when the Bolshevistic Revolution came in Russia, they were getting ready to go to Mexico because they had a difficult situation during this First World War because of their pacifist stand they had. And the other thing was that they were asked to teach English. But English was not only the only thing that they were supposed to. Sometimes it's being said they were leaving because they were asked to teach English. That is not really a just and a right interpretation. Some of those leaders, they said, English is okay, but we don't have teachers that will be able to teach our kids or children, and then we will lose our teachings with different teachers. That was their fear that they were facing. That's why they left for Mexico. When they came to Mexico, Walter Schmiedehaus was observing them at their German consulate in Mexico, and Leonard Sawatsky has translated that description. I will read that what we find in the book of Leonard Sawatsky, They Sought a Country. When we think of migration, there comes to mind that dramatic picture we might time and again have witnessed in the great harbor cities of Europe. Pale, poverty-marked and fear-filled people amid bundles of their pitiful possessions. Privation-worn women whose faces the tears of farewell from the homeland were not dry yet. The flight for Lebensraum from poverty or persecution, the stride into the unknown, into adventure, the great gamble of the homeless, the homeseeker, the Auswanderung, the exodus of the Mennonites from Canada to Mexico, is altogether different. A closed colony of several thousand undertakes a journey through half a continent. Their well-to-do, self-assured farmers comes a solidaristic group with documented privilege to take possessions of their lands. Was this the goal? Was that boundless highland that appeared so inexpressibly wild and worlds away in the pale shimmer of moonlight, the new Heimat, home, one had exchanged for the familiar things of Canada? And then they were standing about in groups, speaking amongst themselves as at home, by the hundreds out there in the wild prairie under a lowering Mexican moon. Plattdeutsch. With first light began the unloading. Holstein cows and great Belgian horses, chickens and geese, grain tanks and bundle wagons, farm implements and great heavy tractors, coils of barbed wire, roofing and corrugated iron, furniture, bedding. By noon all was ready, and the long caravan of horse and tractor-drawn wagons snaked down the hill of San Antonio Valley, out in the valley floor where the new village were to rise. There they were in Mexico, where they had all the privileges they had asked for. The response of the Mexican government said, our laws are sufficient liberal that you can have all these rights. And yet, after some years, almost 50 years later, 1958, we heard that yesterday in the play about the number 666. That was a strange one to me, but not the Seguro Social. The Seguro Social, the security, social security, that was a problem. And the people said, Mexico is becoming communist because Social Security, that is a communist organization and we need to leave. And people were restless and they left for British Honduras. It was not called Belize. It was called British Honduras with the capital city, Belize. And that's where they came. The other Mennonites, I didn't look at my time, I think I'm out of time, right? But the other Mennonites that stayed in Russia, they have a different story where they tell the story differently. But we, as the Canadian Mennonites, we celebrate today here in New Creek. And as I said, I find this as a wonderful occasion to celebrate it. That we together, people that left 1874, we are brothers and sisters all over the continent. We are in Canada, USA, Mexico, Belize, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, God knows where else. But there we are, brothers and sisters. Sometimes we don't understand each other, but yet we are brothers and sisters. And yet the Mennonites are brothers and sisters, and we work together on many occasions. When those Mennonites that stayed in Russia, and they looked down upon those three elders, like Berchtal, it was Gerhard Wieb, the bishop. From Fürstenau, it was Ältester Johann Wieb. From the Kleingemeinde, it was Peter Teufs. They left Russia for Canada. And they were looked down upon on the more liberal, and they said, these people don't understand. Less than 50 years, they were more than happy because those people took them up in their homes after the communist revolution. And it happened again. It was the Mennonites where people came together and they started to help them under a new organization which was called the Mennonite Central Committee, which later became MCC. And MCC is known all over the world. And when John Paul II was in Toronto, he thanked MCC and apologized to the Mennonites for having persecuted them in the 16th century because they had done something good. That's why God said to Jeremiah, wherever you go, he said this to the people in Babel, build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce, marry and have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in numbers there, do not decrease. Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if they prosper, you too will prosper. Isn't that a wonderful prayer? If you will prosper, you also will prosper. And may God give you grace and mercy to do that. Thank you.
Gerhard and Jacob. Now, gentlemen, I'm not going to ask you your age, but suffice to say that in 1958, when the Mennonite community first started here in Blue Creek, you were young people. What I want to know, let us start with you, Jacob. What was it like in those early days?
I wish I could describe it much clearer, but there was a dark future. All was jungle. No store around except a little store across the river in La Union, Mexico. Humid. I don't know what else to say.
Well, you had come from Chihuahua in Mexico, or you had come from Canada?
No, we came from Chihuahua, Mexico. Yeah.
But Chihuahua is hot and dry and dusty, no? This must have been a big change for you.
Yes, it was a big change. Yeah, Chihuahua, that's hot and dusty. And here it was hot and humid. It was quite different, but yes, we got used to it. We arrived here in the middle of April, late April, on April 26th, and it was dry. 2 weeks later, the rain started, and it rained, and it rained. For more than a year, we had actually no dry season. And no roads, only a few tractors, hardly any horses, so we did a lot of walking. Walking 5 miles, that was not an unusual thing in those days.
Well, Gerhard, let me ask you, what was a typical day like back then? What did you do from dawn to dusk?
Well, actually I was only 14 years old. You know, that's an age you don't worry about anything. Yeah, all it was good that we could go on the river and bathe in the river and have friends around. So actually for me it wasn't that hard. For our parents it was tough for them when they got into this bush and see what's the future really. They couldn't see any future, soon future. But you know, it came up and started working and logging and then just start farming. And we couldn't sell corn, we couldn't sell beans. Actually, we just tried to survive.
Well, Jacob, were there times in those days that you really looked into your heart and thought, why on earth did we ever make this move?
Yeah, sure, there was. Not only one time, many times. I must, how do I say, my English is not that good, but congratulate our parents that they stood solid and didn't move back, even though that many people that came here, moved back, but our parents made it through. And I am sure that were dark days for them too. I was a little bit older than George, but I didn't have responsibilities, even though I had to work. I remember that after a few days that we were here, I got my machete, had to sharpen it, and then we went to the bush and work. We didn't know how to use a machete very well. We hired people from nationals from village of San Felipe to chop down the bush. Then after it had been down a couple of months, we burned it, but the remains we had to gather, and that's what we did. With axe and machete, we cut it in pieces and piled it and burned it. And when the time came that we planted corn, we had a stick, sharp, and punched a hole and put corn in, and that's why we started our farming here.
Back then, Gerhard, when you were 14 years old and this place was just all high bush, did you ever think back then that when you became an adult, you would see this prosperous community with electricity and new pickups and huge rice combines and basically a very successful community? Did you see it back then?
No, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it then, but I always thought that we would never get to see electricity or telephone or anything like that that first years. But yeah, later we had it, and we have a good future now.
And then there was music and singing.
When we're faithful and pray steady, then I know that we'll be ready when we're called upon to enter glory land.
These handmade quilts were auctioned off to benefit the Blue Creek Retirement Home. The bidders were very generous. It was for a good cause.
We sold it. Peter Thiessen. Peter Thiessen? Peter Thiessen. We are going to sell it again. Wow. Wow. We have some great contributions here. We just sold it for $3,000 to Peter Thiessen. He wants to sell it again. Can I see $500 for this?
As the heat of the day wore on, it was time to reveal the secret of this unusual creation built on the hillside. It was a gigantic water slide. Can you imagine the excitement on the faces of the children as they swooshed down this incredible 150-foot water slide? The secret in its slipperiness is soapy water, and everybody knows that kids don't like to take baths. But on this day, they all had a good time and came home squeaky clean. But it gets even better as the boys try their aim at the dunking machine. Hit the right spot and splash! How many men does it take to hold back a tractor? This is a question that was answered at the Blue Creek Jubilee Festival. 250 men pulled their hearts out and held back most of the tractors. They did, however, have some difficulty with the Massey 135 with the Dreve trailer. This tractor pull was something to see. Mennonite men are a hardy breed of hard-working men who love their tractors. And even when they lose the tug of war, they just stand there in admiration and respect for their mighty machines. With that in mind, let's go to the hillside where people have gathered once again, but this time to watch the aircraft fly by. Today these birds roam daily to and from Blue Creek and play a large part to people's sources of income in one way or the other. And then there are the yellow ones, the crop dusters, used for agricultural purposes. These dusters have become a very valuable tool for most lowland farmers. And yet there were more things for the kids. Balloon hats. Or try to hit the bullseye with a dart. Happy kids behaving well. Two bus tours were made during the weekend, revisiting areas where the Blue Creek colony story unfolded. After all, what could be a better way to come to understand what the settlers experienced and to bring us to this 50-year anniversary? Blue Creek, past, present, and future, is a community. The old and the young, they stand together with one shared heritage, one journey, to live their lives under the watchful eye of a loving God. This tour embodied this vision. From the location where the people first stepped out onto Blue Creek soil on the banks of the Rio Hondo River, much sacrifice was made, both joy and sorrow. Through this tour, we see a small picture of the steps taken in faith in times of uncertainty, but with great courage. If there's one thing that you won't ever forget, it was the Blue Creek Jubilee Festival Rodeo. This rodeo was the kick in the pants that we all needed. It felt good to let loose and holler. Born out of necessity, Blue Creekers are great horsemen, and on that day they were there to strut their stuff. There was saddle bronc riding, barrel racing, calf roping, team roping. These boys know what they're doing. It was a real hoot. They put on a great show. Catch the Calf was hilarious. Great fun at the Blue Creek Rodeo. And now for a more serious moment. These men and women are bidding to buy a mahogany seedling to be planted here in Blue Creek by the retirement home. The money raised will be used to finish the construction of the retirement home, but also to mark this day, that in the future, when these trees are tall, that these bidders will know that they have done their part to make a promise for the protection of the generation that came before. And as these tiny roots grip the earth and stretch toward the sun, just as the pioneers of Blue Creek did so long ago. This community will survive by God's amazing grace. So many have sacrificed to bring Blue Creek to this day. Blessings be unto God. And when you drive by this monument placed in memory of those who came to Blue Creek 50 years ago, remember this day and give thanks because He has brought us this far. And as the sun sets, the families from Chihuahua, Mexico head home. There were reenactments and skits demonstrating events that occurred in the early days of Blue Creek. Some had a humorous note.
Wie fries liest je hier?
Am Stabenen reiten in der Riete, so mir belohnt rein. Und dann, das geht gleich sehr lang, da fuhren da in die Peter schnell steht. Und dann kauften wir zwei Krippers und kamen da mit drei. Und dann fangen wir an, die Gassen abzuschieben. Und
a full moon rose over the festival as a puppet show told a story to the kids that we could all learn something from.
I run all over the pasture and poop myself out, keeping them out of danger. The minute I get one of them away from falling in the river, I have to run over and chase another one from the barbed wire. I have had it. No more running for me. From now on, it's sleeping under the porch and resting under the mango tree.
Oh, I see. I didn't realize you felt like you were being abused.
Well, I'm abused too. Every morning and evening, just as I find some wonderful grass to graze in, I have to head back to the barn and give all my milk to you through all that squeezing and pulling.
Let me tell you something, Daisy. You don't give that milk. I have to take every drop of it.
Well, anyway, it's just too much trouble having to drop what I'm chewing to come go through that pulling and squeezing routine. I'm just through. Just scratch my name off of that milk and cream list of yours.
Okay. Rooster, what's your big gripe?
Well, every day since I was a young cock, I've had to be the first one off the warm roost. I have to find energy at 6 o'clock in the morning to flap up on a high point and crow my beak off. I'm tired of being a glorified alarm clock for this bunch of beasts.
You're really serious about this, huh?
I sure am. For one morning, I'd like to stay cuddled up on my roost just as long as I pleased.
Okay, you're going to get that chance. Here's what I want you to do. For 1 month, I don't want you to crawl off that roost until 11 o'clock every morning. I also don't want to hear you crowing around here during any other part of the day. If rest is what you want, that's what you'll get. Let the other roosters take care of the whole flock.
Great. You'll not hear a sound out of me.
Now, Miss Daisy, I don't expect to see you around that milking barn for 1 month. Let the rest of the cows walk back there every morning and evening, but I want you to stay out and that lovely grass and eat that lovely grass and just enjoy yourself.
With pleasure. No more cold, icy fingers for me.
And as for you, my doggy friend, I just want you to lay around the house. Even if you see something that must be done with the sheep, I forbid you to take care of them for a month. Let the other dogs take care of all their problems.
Whoopee! It's cool shade and living for me.
At the end of 1 month, I'll expect to see you all back here and not before. Come on over here, Shep. All right, Daisy, it's time. Where's that cocky rooster?
I'm coming.
Well now, isn't this a happy-looking bunch? What? What's all this? Where's all the smiles? You're not having to do all those horrible things anymore.
Oh, Mrs. Farmer, it's terrible. For the first few days, I liked not having to come in when the rest of the cows did, but now, since I haven't been giving milk, I've gone dry. And now that I'd like to be doing my part, I can't. I don't have any more milk to give. I feel useless.
The first few days were nice, but then I started waking up long before dawn. More than anything, I wanted to go out and flap my wings and wake everyone up. But you had forbid me to use my voice. Now, because I haven't used it, I've lost it. I couldn't give a healthy cock-a-doodle-doo if I wanted to. As you can see, Farmer Freddy, I'm miserable too. I haven't done anything but lay around and eat and sleep. I am so fat, I can't even scoot under the porch. And the other night when the coyote was howling, I just had to lie there. I couldn't go with the other dogs to investigate. I'm so fat and my own pups can outrun me. I'm just miserable.
I'm certainly glad to see some animals coming to their senses around here. When God made you, He gave you certain abilities. He gave you your special gifts so that it might be used in serving other people. He wants you to use that gift with a glad heart and a cheerful spirit. You've learned that if you don't use the gift in the right way, God may take it away from you. Perhaps if you really want to be useful to God again, He will let you have your ability back. Rooster, starting tomorrow morning, I want you up using what you have left of your voice to alert the farm to a new day.
Yes, sir.
Sheppy, my old friend, you head for the pasture right now and find the slowest sheep and take care of him. You have to start somewhere.
I'm on my way.
And Daisy, when you have your calf next month, perhaps God will let you start getting on the butter and milk list again.
I certainly hope so, Farmer Buchert. I think we've all learned a big lesson about using the abilities that God has given us.
And another one, especially Margie. The video wat I opgesteld have, it really means a lot to me. Mir hat mich terugdenken en wou het alles gewaast is, de billen helpen zo veel en in the tijd wat I aan je spent have, I really want to thank you a lot for that. Thanks for doing that and thank you all for helping us to be able to have this fast. Thank you.